Hey guys, welcome back to GamingBolt. Today we are covering Elden Ring, 15 things you need to know before buying. The agonizing wait for FromSoftware's next big action RPG is nearly over, as Elden Ring looks set to release on February 25th for Xbox Series XS, Xbox One, PS4, PS5, and PC. Let's take a look at 15 things you need to know before diving in. Let's talk about the story. With lore penned by A Song of Fire and Ice author George R.R. Martin, Elden Ring sees players venturing to the lands between which Queen Marika rules over. However, the Elden Ring's destruction and the scattering of its pieces, the Great Runes, things have been less than ideal. As a Tarnished, previously exiled and drawn back to the lands between, it's up to the player to gather the Great Runes and become the Elden Lord. The latest story trailer offered some more details on the Shattering, a war for the Great Runes that saw figures like General Radhan and Malenia the Severed fighting for supremacy. The latter has been seen in a previous trailer, impaling the player with her sword, but it remains to be seen if Radhan will also appear. Let's talk about the setting. The Lands Between comprises 6 massive areas, each ruled by a distinct lord, with the giant Erd Tree looming over all. Thus far, players have only really explored Limgrave, but a wide variety of open plains, mountains, water bodies, caves, and much more have been discovered, with much more teased in trailers thus far. A world map is provided to the players, but they'll need a map fragments to fill it out. However, it is possible to add markers and beacons to better explore the world. The character creator. Though it wasn't present in the closed network test, Elden Ring will feature a character creator like Dark Souls and Bloodborne. We know it will feature a range of starting classes, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, but an official showcase has yet to be provided. Nevertheless, players should be able to customize their character's hairstyle, face, origin, body type, gender, stats, and much more, like in previous Soulborne titles. The open world design. The biggest change from previous FromSoftware titles is the open world. You can travel seamlessly from one area to the next and have a spirit steed mount for quickly traveling. Instead of bonfires, there are sites of grace where you can level up, allocate different sorceries and ashes of war, pass the time and sort your inventory. Along with weather changes, including lightning that can damage you, there's a real-time day-night cycle, with the latter being helpful when sneaking around. One can also gather materials and craft items, like arrows on the go, along with attacking convoys. Elden Ring's open-world design has often been compared to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, especially in regards to freedom of exploration. Even though the rays of guiding light can be used to define your next core objective, you're free to go pretty much anywhere in Elden Ring. The additional mobility, which leads to better platforming, also provides more incentive to investigate every nook and cranny. It's a fairly big departure from Dark Souls and has been fairly challenging to design. Director Hidetaka Miyazaki told Edge magazine that there were a number of challenges, much of them related to the game tempo, the rhythm, and the flow of the game, to keep the player from getting bored, to keep them interested, exploring, and having fun. And, of course, in this brand new huge world that we've created, we wanted to prioritize that fun and the level of player freedom more than anything. So with that comes a lot of characters, a lot of events that you're trying to incorporate, and you don't want anything to tread on the toes of anything else. You want it all to mingle and mesh nicely with the player and their motives as well. But you want it to be there, and you want it to provide that stimulation for progressing forward and exploring. Miyazaki also revealed that the level of freedom that the team wanted to achieve exceeded what we were initially planning for, which required more time for debugging and Q&A. Let's talk about NPCs. It wouldn't be a FromSoftware game without a range of interesting NPCs, and Elden Ring doesn't disappoint. Based on the closed network test and gameplay revealed so far, we've met the likes of Merchant Kale, a vendor dressed like Santa Claus, and Sorceress Selen, who will sell sorceries and train the player to use them. Other NPCs include Malenia, who gives the player a spectral steed whistle to summon their mount, Alexander, aka Iron Fist, an individual whose entire body is a cauldron, and white-faced Vare, who appears at the first sight of grace and mocks the player for being maidenless. Various other NPCs also appear and seem to lead factions, which may function like covenants from Dark Souls, but more details have yet to be provided on the same. The Caves and Legacy Dungeons. As one explores the lands between, they'll come across various caves and catacombs which play a host to smaller boss fights. These house new weapons, skills, and whatnot, but won't necessarily push you to the limit. Legacy dungeons, on the other hand, are large sprawling dungeons with multiple routes, loots, and foes, along with one of the 6 major bosses that must be defeated. Stormveil Castle is the only legacy dungeon that has been revealed thus far, and is a complex structure complete with a nigh impassable front gate, some sneaky side entrances, and large buildings that can be traversed. Combat and Ashes of War. Those who have played a Dark Souls game should feel immediately at home in Elden Ring. Its combat and movements are very similar, right down to the light and heavy attacks, stamina meters, parrying, dodging, rolling, critical hits, and more. It's not an exact copy though. Jumping is now its own dedicated function, and it's possible to execute leap attacks that can deal potent amounts of damage. And while several skills will remind one of their Soulborn equivalents, there are plenty of new ones to unlock. Several different weapon types exist, from swords and shields to bows and axes, and while there are two-handed weapons, you can also wield a one-handed weapon with both hands. Stealth has also been expanded on significantly over Dark Souls, allowing one to be sneakier and assassinate foes. Perhaps the biggest departure that Elden Ring makes in terms of FromSoftware's combat is in the skills. They're no longer tied to weapons. Instead, you find different Ashes of War, which can be applied to weapons and shields to bestow skills. Build diversity is much greater as a result. You can play as the Bloody Wolf class, but equip the Glintsword Arch skill that creates an arch of magical swords that will attack automatically. Ashes of War can also help match the scaling of one's weapon to their stats, along with changing its damage type. No upgrade materials are needed for this, but you can only have one Ash of War per weapon or shield. World Bosses. A number of bosses have been seen in trailers thus far, and the closed network test even saw players going up against Margaret the Fell Omen in Stormveil Castle. However, there are a number of bosses simply roaming the open world, waiting to pounce. These include the massive dragon Hagil, the tree sentinel which rides a mount and appears early on, and so forth. You also have mini-bosses like the Black Knight, who only appears at night on a bridge in Limgrave and will attack those who get too close. Sorceries and Incantations. As noted previously, sorceries are present along with incantations, functioning as magic to fend off enemies. The former scales off the intelligence and ranges from firing 3 magic projectiles with glintstone stars and summoning meteors to rain down on enemies to using one own's blood to create thorns. The latter scales off faith and includes Beast Claw, which sends claw-like shockwaves through the ground, Dragonfire to spew fire, and Heal for creating a small area to recover health in. You need different equipment to utilize sorceries and incantations, but they're the key to success in battle. Let's talk about spirits. Much like the AI summons of old, Elden Ring allows for summoning spirits to aid you in combat. These spirits are based on defeated enemies, and one needs Spirit Caller's Ash corresponding to that specific foe to summon them. A rebirth monument is also necessary, and upon dying in a boss fight, they can't be resummoned in the same instance. Thus far, we've seen spirits like a pack of wolves, the Northern Mercenary, which attacks with a cleaver, and much more. Co-op, PvP, and invasions. Multiplayer in Elden Ring comprises of co-op and PvP, but like the Dark Souls series, it works a bit differently from other games. For co-op, other players are summoned. Using Tamashit's fur-led finger will create a summoning sign, which can be seen by others in their world, thus allowing them to summon you. This had unlimited uses in the closed network test, so it remains to be seen if the full game will change anything. Summoning another player requires a fur-calling finger remedy, which stacked up to 99 in the network test. This allows you to see different summoning signs and bring another player into your world. Using the finger severer removes another player from your world. You can also use the Duelist Furled Finger to summon other players for PvP, or the Bloody Finger to invade another player's world and attack them, though they can do the same to you. Again, this will all be familiar to Dark Souls players, but it's fairly different from a typical co-op experience, especially since dying sends the summoned player back to their own session. Download size. It's no secret that Elden Ring is a massive game. The section that closed network test players accessed is apparently a small percentage of the overall world map. The download size is also hefty, but still somewhat manageable. According to PlayStation Game Size on Twitter, it will be 44.472 gigabytes for PS5. The Xbox Store also reportedly indicated a 50 gigabyte install size, though the listing has since been changed to remove this. Either way, you'll want to clear some space before downloading. 4K 60 frames per second and ray tracing on PS5 and Xbox Series X. In terms of graphic modes, there are a number of options for PS5 and Xbox Series X players. There's a performance mode for 60 frames per second gameplay, which adjusts the resolution to maintain the frame rate, and a resolution mode, which offers 30 frames per second, but prioritizes the maximum resolution, which is 4K. Ray tracing and HDR are also supported. Xbox Series S also supports HDR, but not ray tracing, and the max resolution is 1440p with an option for 60 frames per second, presumably at 1080p. Pressure to improve graphical fidelity. While Elden Ring's fidelity doesn't quite approach titles like Horizon's Forbidden West, it's still incredibly good looking. According to director Hidetaka Miyazaki, there was pressure to make sure the visuals were on the level following Blueprint Games' remake of Demon's Souls on PS5. Yes, I'm pretty sure the graphics creation staff felt that pressure more than anyone else. He noted that the studio was looking to improve on graphics in its games, and not just with Elden Ring, but with all the games we make. Graphical fidelity is not something we put on top priority. What we ask for on the graphics side depends on the systems and requirements of the game itself, and it takes less priority compared to the other elements of development. So this is always an area where I feel a little bit apologetic towards my graphics team because I know they work extremely hard. And they've worked extremely hard on Elden Ring. Our graphics system team and our programmers have been pushing a lot of new features to create the best looking games we've ever made. Thus far, it definitely seems to be living up to those expectations.
So what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below, and if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.